Good morning, beloved ones. Turn to someone and tell them, you are the change. You are the change. Yes. You are the change. We are the light bearers. It's been a full few months for me, but I'm feeling pretty good, though. I've been moving fast, but I know sometimes, there's so much going on in our lives that we can feel like we're living life on overload. You know what I mean? There's so much. The world today is such a different world. It's so full of a multitude of choices even. Just think about 100 years ago, people didn't have that many choices. Life was very simple. They got up and they did the things that were germane to their basic survival. Maybe it was planting food or preparing food or whatever, but they didn't have a multitude of choices. And today, we're sort of bombarded with that. There's an excessive amount of stimuli that is available. We can get on an iPhone and Facebook. You can Twitter. You can blog. You can call up somebody. You can read their life story that they've posted on Facebook. You can see what they had for dinner. And, there's just stimulation is everywhere in excess. We have information is so readily available, immediate information. I remember if you wanted to know something, you had to go to the library or go to the encyclopedia. You pick up the phone and you ask Siri anything. And within seconds, bam, there's an answer. There's something, with the internet. And so we have immediate information, and not to mention this warp speed of time experiences that we have. Time is speeded up and we're moving faster. It's warp speed and we move from one thing to the other. And all of a sudden, we don't really have enough time, it may feel like, to catch our breath and to really savor the moment. Because something happens, and it could be a good thing, but you're on to the next thing. Oprah was saying, that people were asking, well, what's the next thing? And the next thing, and she was like, I don't know what the next, I'm trying to just be present to this and get belief off. And I don't know what, it hasn't even happened, and people want to know what's next. We're just it's no wonder that so many people, I believe, may be experiencing extreme stress as never before, and they are also coming to the realization that multitasking is not all that it cracked up to be. Remember, there was a big push to be, and they're finding that we are not really as productive as we think we are when we are multitasking. Because we're not really fully present to the task. We're doing a lot of things, but we're not really present to it. Even in my own life, I'll take something in an envelope and I say, well, okay, I want to put this in a place that's safe, but I'm so fast, I have no idea where I put the thing. I can't keep up with myself, right? And I'm like, wow, this was important. I know I put it someplace because I wasn't present to that experience. Right? I said it was important for me, it was an important document, I wanted to put it away, and I have no idea where I put it. Because I wasn't present to that experience. So we're living in some interesting times, and if we're not careful, our whole lives will just simply get away from us, and we will not have experienced much. Right? We've gone in circles, but we wouldn't have experienced much or felt the meaning of an event. And when we don't experience our lives or a situation, chances are you'll keep having to repeat it over. You'll be in like the little groundhog loop, doing it over and over because you didn't experience it. So the same thing keeps coming until all of a sudden we have awareness and consciousness and presence to what we're doing and how we are being and how we are showing up. Last week, I spoke about living from an empty place, and that when we are able to actually let go and to really let God, when we are truly empty of those things that actually drain us, right, of our life force and drain us of our energy, we will be in a different state. We'll be in a different place. At some point along our journey, we have to realize that we are really being called to surrender. And I love the fact that David's saying, I surrender all. At some point, it's going to become clear to us on our journey that we are being called to surrender all, to surrender our sense of self even, to surrender our limited sense of self, so that we can merge with and emerge or be one with the divine self, the God self, our higher self. There really is only one self, but different degrees of awareness of that self. And when we are not fully present, the self that shows up may be limited in its capacity to really understand life itself. Yet when we open ourselves up to that which is divine within us and allow it to move and to come forth, we have a different experience. Our life shows up differently. And so I said last week that we want to be empty. We want to be so empty so that we can be full. We want to be empty of the lower self, the limited self, the forgetful self, the unconscious self, so that we can be fully present to the God self, full of God, right? Full of good. And if we practice this living from an empty place, then we will be better able to give from a full place, to give from a full cup, from the fullness of God. So we empty so that we can be filled, and that we give from this place of overflowing good. There's a very familiar scripture that most of us probably learned when we were children, and it's the 23rd Psalm. I don't know, did you have to memorize that? We had to memorize that one, I don't know. But anyway, I love it because it is committed to my memory. But verse 5, the last verse, verse 5 says, Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy, and thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. My cup runneth over. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me through all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So goodness and mercy are going to follow me all the days of my life. But what I like is that there's a table that's been prepared for me. And that my head has been anointed with oil, and that my cup runneth over. And your cup can be your consciousness, your container, right? But it runneth over. And it runneth over with what? With some good things, with goodness and mercy. You see, when we are not living from that empty place, from an empty place, our cup runs over, but it is running over with negative and limiting things. Our head is not necessarily anointed. Our head is simply full of stuff. Stuff that's not really serving us well, right? But when we are empty and full of God, then our head is anointed with oil, and then our cup runneth over. Now, oil metaphysically means divine love or divine nature or that which is consecrated in blessing. So our head is anointed with divine love, right? And love is being poured out over our being so that our cup, our consciousness can be filled with divine love, filled with the divine nature of God, filled with the substance of God, filled with the blessings of God, so that it overflows overflows into every aspect of our lives. It's being poured out for us so that everything that we're covered in wholeness and holiness and blessedness and goodness. So we have this table that is filled with love and goodness, and it's prepared for us, which I love, right? Thou preparest a table for me. It's a table that's been prepared, and the table is so full with goodness and great things that our cup runneth over, and we can't contain it all. Now, what I also like is that this table that's prepared for me, of goodness, of love, mercy, all the fulfillment of spirit, it's prepared for me in the presence of mine enemies. Now, right away, we're going to go to enemies, people. Who are the enemies? Your enemy, basically, or metaphysically, are those thoughts and feelings and attitudes and perceptions and beliefs that dwell within you that are opposed to the good. You know, those thoughts and feelings and ideas that see limitation everywhere, as opposed to seeing abundance and blessings everywhere. One definition of an enemy that I got from the dictionary said, an enemy is a thing that harms or weakens something. Well, negative thoughts certainly harm and weaken our consciousness, do they not? Yes. But here's the good news, because in this cup, in this consciousness, we're going to have a little bit of both. But the good news is that God has prepared a table full of goodness in the midst of what would harm or weaken our consciousness. And that we have access to high thoughts, God thoughts, loving thoughts, good images, good vibes, right? We have access to the goodness of these wonderful divine ideas of God at any moment and at every moment. So the table is full. But whether we eat from it is up to us. The table is full. And it's full of what? The table is full with divine ideas. Because here's what we need to know about divine ideas. Sometimes we think that God gives us things. But our divine inheritance, metaphysically, are divine ideas. Because things will perish, things fade away, things are temporal. The only thing that can really last and that can fulfill you in an everlasting way is a divine idea. Because divine ideas come full and complete with everything needed to fulfill themselves, and they cannot be destroyed. Things can be destroyed. The concept of love cannot be destroyed. Prosperity can't be destroyed. Health and wholeness can't be destroyed. Any divine idea that comes from God cannot be destroyed. And if what you produce from that divine idea is destroyed, the thing itself, the good news is, as we learned in our classes, that you can do what? You can create it again, build it again, demonstrate it again, express it again. So the table is full with infinite, wonderful divine ideas that we can partake of. Whether we do or whether we don't, is up to us. And we can sit around and saying, I wish somebody would give me something. I wish God would do this. And he's given you everything. So here's a hint. If you really want to have the fullness of God's table, the fullness of what God has on the table, then it's really best for us to empty ourselves from our limited perceptions and beliefs and thoughts and attitudes. Because when we are truly empty of our little selves, we can be full of the God self. And then we live from there. We give from there. See, we give from a full cup, living and giving from the overflow of God. Because it said, my cup runneth over. Right? So don't you want to live from the overflow? You don't want to live from just a little bit. I want to live from the overflow. I want to be so filled with goodness and mercy and love that it just spills over into everything that I do, everything that I touch. I'm living from the overflow. Now, there's a spiritual law that says whatever we give to life lives. Whatever I give to life lives. Meaning, whatever we give our attention to grows, right? Whatever you give your attention to grows. Whatever you focus on creates more frequency. It creates a greater intensity of that which you are focusing on. Whatever we are holding in consciousness expands. This is what we call the kingdom of heaven consciousness. It's taking these divine ideas, these perfect ideas, and holding them until they begin to expand. Heaven is an ever-expanding state of good. Not a place, an ever-expanding state or consciousness of good or of God. And the more you dwell, the more it grows and unfolds and greater and greater. Because the divine idea is infinite. So you just keep unfolding and growing in that consciousness. So this whole thing of whatever you give to life lives, whatever you give attention to grows, whatever you're focusing on, there is an intensity of that frequency. Whatever you're holding in consciousness will expand. And this law of giving and living is very closely related to the spiritual law of giving and receiving. Giving and living, whatever I give to life lives, is very much related to the law of giving and receiving. Whatever I give, I also what? Receive. So the question then is, what are you giving to your life? We're very focused on what we're getting out of life. But what are you giving to your life? That's a spiritual law. And the next question would be, are you giving from a full cup? Are you giving from a full cup? We all know that statement or the question that people often ask that's used to determine your particular outlook, whether your outlook in life is positive or negative. And they'll ask you, well, is the glass what, half empty or half full? And depending upon the answer that you give will be an indication of how you see life, right? How you experience life. If you say it's half empty, well, then that's your perception of life. And for you, probably there's a lot of struggle and life's half empty. But if you answer half full, then we say, oh, it's half full, then you have more of a positive orientation. Well, in my meditations, and I've been working with this, I want to now say that the glass is completely full. Even if I'm looking at it and it only has a little bit of water in it, I'm going to see and say that it is completely full. Not half empty, not half full, but completely full. And why could I say that? Because I'm learning to live from a full cup. I'm learning to see my life and the things around me as the fullness of God in operation. I don't care what the appearance is. I'm going behind that to righteous judgment, and I'm going to see the fullness of God at work in it. So this is what a metaphysician must do. See, a metaphysician goes behind. Meta means beyond the physical. So we're trained now. You are trained to look beyond the appearance to see the truth that you know exists in God. So if it's a glass that has this amount of water in the glass, you perceive and see the fullness. See, faith allows you to see what is not seen. Right? To precede what is not seen with the natural eye, because you're looking at it with your supernatural essence of being, so that you can see what others can't see. You can see the fullness. I can see the blessings. I can see the goodness. I see this sanctuary filled to overflowing with true students, with metaphysicians, with light bearers, with people who are hungering and thirsting for the truth and want to be a demonstration of what God can do in one's life. That's the image that I'm holding. I don't care if there was only one person in this sanctuary. I'm holding that vision. I want to see that. So it's whether we see from the fullness of God, we can see the invisible substance of God, and we hold it until it manifests. All that I give to life lives. which means everything that I make important in my mind takes on energy, and it grows. Now, the thing is, a lot of things that we take on as being important really isn't. So you need to check what you, right? But if you're giving your attention, it's occupying a lot of space in your head, but it's not really important to what you want to show up in your life. So everything that I make important in my mind takes on energy and it grows. So I have to make sure that what I'm holding are good thoughts, God thoughts, good vibrations, good pictures in my heart and mind, so that I can see from fullness, I claim from the fullness. See, this is the thing. You don't have to come to life with an empty cup, begging for others to fill it for you. A lot of times that's how we write. Can you fill my cup? You got some love you can put in here? You got some peace? Can you put some peace in my cup? You know, how about can you put some money in my cup? This is not how we are made. We don't have to come to life with an empty cup, begging for it to be filled by others. We have already been given a full cup. You've been given a cup that's overflowing with goodness and mercy and blessings. The scriptures all say that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. The fullness of God is already present. We've told that in thy presence is the fullness of joy. In the presence of God is the fullness of everything that you need. My cup is running over. So what is it that you think you're lacking? Whatever it is, as a metaphysician, here's what you do. You begin to look for the divine idea which lies in back of that thing you believe yourself to be lacking, and you focus on that. You give your attention to that. You see the fullness of that divine idea. You fill your consciousness, your cup, with that truth, and soon it will begin to overflow into your life. We have to be like the metaphysicians of old. I'm looking at, Unity's been around well over 100 years, and not just Unity, but New Thought people and whatever, for 100 years. And I'm thinking we need to go back a little bit and be like the old metaphysicians who would practice the art of sort of spiritual mind treatments. And that is, they would take an idea and they would fill their consciousness with it. Meaning they would stay with that idea, they would pray, meditate on that divine idea, hold it in consciousness until there was a shift and a change in their consciousness. And they call that spiritual mind treatment, which means they would focus. We're so busy, we're all products of the age. What was the TV program that the kids, we all used to watch? Sesame Street. When all of a sudden we have all this stimulation that we can't hold an idea more than 2 seconds before something else comes in the mind. We're not disciplined in our mind anymore. And it is the holding of an idea in consciousness that breeds manifestation. It's not, let me say a quick prayer, quick affirmation. No, God, okay, is it here yet? Right? God, can you give me? Is it showed up yet? No. Those metaphysicians would take that idea and they would work with it and hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it and build it and see it and claim it and hold it and work with it and pray with it and affirm it until there was a shift in their consciousness. They possessed it. They embodied that idea until they could see it demonstrated. This was a mind treatment. This was what they called scientific prayer. This was true affirmative prayer, and they would not allow one negative or limited thought to enter into the consciousness when they were working and they were treating. Nothing less than the truth was acceptable. And they would fill their cup with the absolute truth, and they were called absolutists. And somewhere along the line in our growth and unfoldment, we started letting in the relative world. And what happens is I believe it weakened us from being absolute in our prayer. I recognize that when I'm working with people one-on-one, I must be with them in their relative conditions. But when I go to pray with them and when I go to affirm the truth and hold them, I can only be an absolutist. I can't pray for your wholeness and then see your weakness. It's not going to work, right? I got to see this. So this is the modern world that we live in. And as true students, even though we're true students, we rarely allow ourselves to say that we see the glass half empty. Most of us are not going to say that. We will perhaps, however, say that we see it as being half full. And I'm going to ask you to, and challenge you to begin to see it as being completely full. No more half anything. You get that? We got to live like we're all in. Live like we're all in. No more half-stepping. All that we give to life lives. And we want to give from a full cup. From a full cup. So I just say, may your cup runneth over, and goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life. Blessings and namaste. Well, blessings. Blessings and namaste. Blessings. Blessings and namaste.